السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. أما بعد. Today we carry on in our lessons on the Fiqh of Tahara, and we left off, or we're in the segment of speaking about the nawaqid of Tahara Surah, or the nullifiers of wudu, ablution. And today we will be speaking about something. We'll begin by speaking about Mas'alat Dam al-Istihada, which is pertaining to females. And Istihada is referring to a bleeding from the female organ, which is not due to menstruation or childbirth. So it's neither hayd or nifas. And Istihada in and of itself is a very deep topic. We're not going to go into the depths and details right now. What we're going to cover is relating to how does Istihada affect wudu, or how does it relate to wudu. Is a woman required to make wudu for every salah because she suffers from istihada or not? So we begin by mentioning the first opinion in this mas'ala is that scholars mentioned that the first opinion in this mas'ala is that the ulama, they say that the woman is required to renew her wudu for every salah while she suffers from an istihada. However, this view, it branches off into multiple other opinions or sub-opinions within this view, because the ulama that agreed and said that wudu is required for every salah, or it must be renewed when the woman suffers from istihada, they differed on how long it lasts for and when she would have to make wudu. So, brothers, if you want to pray, I think they're praying jama'ah there. Oh, never mind, okay. So they had differences in sub-matters, like when is the proper timing for the wudu, for the mustahada, like when should she intend to make it, or what should she intend, when should she intend to make her wudu? Is it when the time of waqt salah enters? Is it when she intends to make the salah? Is it voided by performing only the fard salah? Can she pray nawafil with it? And so on. And is the wudu nullified when the salah time ends and she has to repeat it just immediately upon the entering of the next salah? And other issues. But this opinion here, that al-mustahada needs to make wudu for every salah, is held by al-Hanafiyya, al-Shafi'iyya, al-Hanabila, and Ibn Hazm rahimahumullah. And they base their opinion off of a narration that is from Aisha radiyallahu anha. The narration is as follows: حدثنا محمد قال حدثنا أبو معاوية حدثنا هشام بن عروة عن أبيه عن عائشة رضي الله عنها قالت: جاءت فاطمة بنت أبي حبيش إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فقالت: يا رسول الله إني امرأة أستحاض فلا أطهر فأدع الصلاة قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم: لا، إنما ذلك عرق وليس بحيض، فإذا أقبلت حيضتك فدعي الصلاة، وإذا أدبرت فاغسلي عنك الدم ثم صلي. قال: وقال أبي: ثم توضئي لكل صلاة حتى يجيء ذلك الوقت. رواه البخاري. So in this narration, Fatima bint Abu Hubaysh came to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and said: Ya Rasulullah, I get istihada, I get persistent bleeding from the uterus and do not become clean. Shall I give up my prayers? Because as we know, the woman who experiences menstruation, she gives up her prayers for that set time. Rasulullah said sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, no, because that is bleeding from a blood vessel and not menses. So when your real menses begins, then give up prayers, and when it is finished, then wash off the blood, i.e. take a ghusl, a bath, and offer your prayers. And then Hisham, the sub-narrator, he narrated that his father had also said, Rasulullah told her, perform ablution for every prayer till the next time of the next period comes. So something that's key, which they base their opinion off of, is this last statement in the narration. However, like we said, the one that's narrating the hadith is Hisham bin Urwa an Abihi. Then in the end of the narration, قال وقال أبي, يعني Hisham is mentioning from his father, ثم توضئي لكل صلاة حتى يجيء ذلك الوقت. That you should make wudu, this is Hisham narrating that his father had said, then perform ablution for every prayer till the next time, or till the time of the next prayer comes. Or perform ablution for every prayer till the time of the next period comes, rather, astaghfirullah. Okay, so this is the statement of the father of Hisham, who is the sub-narrator of the hadith. So, and this is pretty much what they base their opinion off of, this line in the hadith. Because it's very straightforward, very, it's wadih, it's sarih. However, it is not sahih lil-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So had the last part of the hadith been the statement of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, then it would have proven this opinion with no doubt. Okay, it is authentic hadith, it's in Bukhari. However, this statement, it is not authentic to Rasulullah. It is the statement of, as is mentioned directly in the narration in Al-Bukhari, it is the statement of Hisham mentioning what his father had said. So it is not the words of our beloved sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Therefore, they based their opinion strictly off of the words of a sub-narrator, which is open to dispute because he is a scholar just like other scholars, and they have their own ijtihad, and they can be correct or make mistake. Then there is also some other weak hadith in the bab here that indicate the same meaning. However, Ibn Rajab, he said, أحاديث الوضوء لكل صلاة قد رويت من وجوه متعددة وهي مضطربة ومعللة. That Ibn Rajab, he says, rahimahullah, that the narrations pertaining to repeating wudu for every salah have been narrated from many different chains, but they are muttariba and mu'allala. They're jumbled and defective, meaning they're not authentic narrations. So there is other narrations that allude to the same meaning, that wudu is required for every prayer, but they are not authentic, so we do not pay attention to them. So if we were to examine the mas'ala of al-istihada, if a woman makes wudu right when, for example, Salat al-Asr enters, by the time she makes wudu, then puts on her clothing for salah and she does takbirat al-ihram, okay, during this whole period of time, she has ongoing bleeding. And even throughout the duration of her salah as well, ongoing or continuous bleeding. Perhaps even while she's making wudu, she has this hadath, al-istihada. So, the ones that they hold this opinion that wudu is required, from them, they allow a woman to perform sunnah prayers with the same wudu. So they would say that her wudu is not invalidated by these intervals. Okay, so they allow her to make the fard, then the sunnah afterwards. So they say that period of time, her wudu is not being invalidated. Therefore, if the bleeding does not avoid the wudu, because while she's making wudu, before she begins her fard, during her fard, after the fard, and during the sunnah, if the bleeding is not invalidating wudu during any of those intervals, then wudu should also, logically speaking, continue beyond that as well. Unless another ordinary hadath invalidates the wudu, like the person relieves themselves by using the washroom, urinating, defecating, passing wind, and so on. And there's no explicit or clear authentic evidence which suggests that wudu is invalidated at the end of a salah time or a nafil prayer. So we do not have any clear guidance on this mas'ala from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, which explains or which suggests that wudu is invalidated by something taking place. The second opinion is that it is mustahab, or it is recommended for the woman to make wudu, to repeat wudu if she has istihada. So it is recommended, or it's liked for the woman to repeat wudu for prayers when she's mustahada. However, it is not wajib or necessary. So if she does not repeat wudu, then her salah would be valid and completely fine. And we're not talking about if she has another hadath, like if the mustahada urinates and uses the washroom, then without a doubt we understand she has to repeat wudu. We're talking about if she made wudu while she has istihada for the whole time and she remained upon wudu up until Asr, the only thing is that she is suffering from istihala, then there is no issue. It's recommended for her to repeat wudu, but it is not necessary or wajib upon her. This opinion is held by al-Malikiyya, and it's also held by Dawud al-Zahiri, which is one of the imams in the Zahiri madhab. And they also use the same narration, however they only base their opinion strictly off of the wording of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and not off of the addition in the end of the narration by the sub-narrator Hisham. So, simply taken from the statement, when she says, إِنِّي امْرَأَةٌ أُسْتَحَاضُ فَلَا أَطْهُرْ أَفَأَدَعُ الصَّلَاةَ قَالَ لَا صلى الله عليه وسلم. Then he said, إِنَّمَا ذَلِكَ عِرْقٌ وَلَيْسَ بِحَيْضٍ. So he said that's just simply a bleeding of a vein or a blood vessel, and it is not menstruation. So there's nothing more from Rasulullah in this regard. So, something I want to just point out here is that Shaykh Muhammad bin Salih al-Uthaymeen rahimahullah, he initially held the first opinion in this mas'ala here, but then he actually, recordings of him and fatwa from him in this regard, when he held the first opinion that she must make wudu, were circulated quite a bit. But near the end of his life, rahimahullah, he actually recanted his stance, and he said that the second opinion of the Malikiyya was actually the correct opinion. However, that isn't as widespread. So people, lots of times when they're trying to search something up, they come across Ibn Uthaymeen right away on YouTube. The first thing that might pop up when they're looking for a fatwa, if they're in a predicament, they need some guidance, they might come across that. However, Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah, he changed his opinion in the latter part of his life, and he also selected the second opinion, saying that it does not require wudu for every salah. Okay? So the correct opinion, wallahu ta'ala a'lam, is that wudu for each salah for the mustahada is only recommended. It's not required. It is not a wajib. And simply because there is a lack of authentic evidence requiring it. Like directly in this hadith, where the woman comes to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Fatima bint Abi Hubaysh, and she's asking him directly, explicitly about mas'alat al-istihada. And she asked Rasulullah, should I leave salah? He said no. And then he explained to her that this is not hayd. And then he explained to her that for hayd, do so and so. When it ends, you clean yourself and you take a bath and then perform salah. But he didn't say anything about cleaning oneself, about istihada, even though she was asking directly about this. So the ulama, what they say is that because she was asking directly about this and there was no response given by Rasulullah about that, even though he went the extra step to give her guidance about purifying herself for the hayd, it shows that there is nothing required for her to do in terms of repeating wudu for every salah. Wallahu a'lam. Some ulama, they did qiyas on this mas'ala here, istihada. They compared it to salas bawl, or like urinary incontinence. But just to further magnify this opinion here and why it is correct, is that we know that لا يجوز تأخير البيان عن وقت الحاجة. It's a principle we have in Islam, that it is not permissible to delay conveying knowledge past the point where it is due. So we know that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, had it been wajib for a woman to make wudu for every prayer while she's mustahada, then Rasulullah would have definitely conveyed it to us. Okay? And we would have had some clear authentic evidence in that regard, especially because istihada is an extremely widespread matter. Many women of the Ummah experience this at one point or another in their life. So the fact that we don't have anything from him, that it wasn't narrated from the Sahaba, from Rasulullah, nothing has reached us of this sort. And not only is it a very common medical occurrence that takes place amongst the Nisa of this Ummah, but like I said, Rasulullah was specifically asked about it. So it's not like it's something like something new, something that's like something that's new in time, some type of new technology that Rasulullah never lived with, so that we have to seek some fatwa from the ulama about. No, Rasulullah, he was asked directly about this thing. Like he was approached by a woman directly about this mas'ala here, and he never gave her any sort of guidance like that. So he would have never have been silent on such an essential detail, especially because it pertains to the second rukn of Islam. In addition to that, Ibn Abd al-Barr and al-Tamheed and Ibn Rajab and Fath al-Bari and al-Qarafi, they agree that all the narrations pertaining to repeating or they require the mustahada to repeat wudu, they are not strong enough to constitute a hujjah for that opinion, that it is needed. And al-istihada is an ongoing hadith, as we said. It is constantly an ongoing bleeding or a continuous bleeding from the woman's organ. And the impurity does not go away like it does in the matter of urine or madhi or wadi. Because in those regards, the najasa is cleaned away once discharged, and then it desists. However, in istihada, that's not the case. It actually persists on. So wudu doesn't benefit such a person in uplifting the state of impurity because it is ongoing and it is not within their hand. It's a medical occurrence that takes place. Similar to salas al-bawl, somebody that has urinary incontinence. So technically speaking, the wudu or the impurities going during wudu, during salah and after salah. So the correct opinion or view is to not pay attention to it because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes things easy. We know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the religion easy for us. So when it comes to masail like this, then the simple answer is that you do not pay attention to it. It's as if it's not there. In terms of the salah, it's as if it's not there. So she does not pay attention to the bleeding of al-istihada, and it does not invalidate her wudu, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Because we know that the overall maqasid or the maqsad of the sharia is to make things easier in tahara. So this directly aligns with that, and this is the correct opinion. Wallahu a'lam. The next mas'ala here is if somebody discharges something abnormal from the two makharij. So a normal thing that a human experiences is passing urine or defecation or passing wind or madhi or wadi or many, as we spoke about previously. But how about passing something that's abnormal, such as a kidney stone, or such as a tapeworm or a pinworm infection or something like that? Or what if a person swallows an object and digests it, then he discharges or defecates it, even though that object in and of itself might be pure? So the first opinion in this regard is that anything that is discharged nullifies the wudu regardless of the normality of it. And this is held by the Hanafiyya, Shafi'i, and Hanabila. And many ulama of the Salaf also held this opinion, such as Ata, Imam al-Thawri, Ishaq ibn Rahway, al-Hasan al-Basri, al-Awza'i, ibn al-Mubarak. They all stated that whatever exits the al-Makharij, the two private parts, nullifies wudu, whether it's normal or abnormal. And this is taken directly from the verse يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تقربوا الصلاة وأنتم سكارى حتى تعلموا ما تقولون ولا جنبا إلا عابر السبيل حتى تغتسلوا وإن كنتم مرضى أو على سفر أو جاء أحد منكم من الغائط. This is the shahid here. أو لامستم النساء فلم تجدوا ماء فتيمموا صعيدا طيبا فامسحوا بوجوهكم وأيديكم منه إن الله كان عفوا غفورا. So أو جاء أحد منكم من الغائط. So this explains, or this is the shahid or the part of the ayah that we're looking for. If any of you have come from the washroom, if anyone has relieved themselves. So they utilize this general proof regarding defecation, saying that whatever is defecated or urinated, whether it is normal or abnormal, it voids the wudu regardless of what it is. And this is simply because they're exited from the sarirain, the two normal areas of defecation or urination, so they take the same ruling as what normally comes out of there. And this is just an easy way to compare, making a strong qiyas in this mas'ala here. So, likewise, another logical point that also supports this view is that, technically speaking, whatever is going to be passing through as-sabilayn, the two makharij, it's going to have at least a small amount of najasa on it because it is passing through that sabil or that sabil. So if it's coming down where urine normally comes out of, without a doubt it'll have some trace of urine. And likewise, if it comes out of the back side, the back passage, then it will have some trace of defecation or najasa on it as well. So technically speaking, while passing stuff that is abnormal, you are essentially passing najasa as well, or something that normally is passed through the sabilayn. Even though we know that not everything that passes out of the sabilayn has to be najis in order for it to invalidate wudu. For example, wind is passed out of the backside. However, wind is tahir, it's not najis, however it nullifies wudu. Unlike, for example, somebody passing something similar, like when burping, they're passing wind or gas through their esophagus out of their mouth. Okay, burping does not invalidate wudu, even though it is similar in nature to wind which is passed from the backside. But because it is exiting a sabilayn, or one of the sabilayn, then it nullifies wudu, wallahu a'lam. The second opinion, and this is a qawl al-rajih, wallahu a'lam, this is the correct opinion. However, for the sake of the knowledge, the second opinion is held by the Malikiya, and they state that only normal najasat exiting from these areas void wudu and not abnormalities. So the Malikiya, they said that these exceptional circumstances, they compared it to discharging abnormalities from other than the private parts. Like, for example, if someone's passing mucus out of his throat or out of his nostrils, or his bleeding has a cut open or something to that effect, they kind of compared it to the same thing because they're abnormalities. So they didn't say that it takes the same hukum as other najasat or other things that come out of the front or back passage. However, even though they held this opinion, some of the Malikiya, they said that it does in fact invalidate wudu if it is accompanied by some najasa from that sabil as well. And I think لا يتوضأ على قول الراجح. ابن عثيمين رحمه الله غير، يعني في آخر حياته عليه رحمة الله هو أخذ بالقول الثاني اللي لا يتوضأ. بس المتداول عنه عليه رحمة الله القول الأول اللي هو ذكر، يعني روي عنه في أول حياته عليه رحمة الله. نعم، يستدلوا بنفس الحديث يعني. So there is يعني صلى الله عليه وسلم. نعم. بس في الرواية في صحيح البخاري هي ليس كلام الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم ولكن كلام هشام رحمه الله. تمام، الله يجزيك الخير. بس نعم. مش عارف. If somebody wants to be on the safe side, if somebody like they experience al-istihada or salas bawl, so the woman is experiencing istihada or salas bawl, like we said, is urinary incontinence. There's always droplets of urine that's exiting the body. Okay, if they want to take the safer opinion, then they can make wudu for every salah. However, like I mentioned, the Malikiya, and it was the opinion that was selected by Ibn Uthaymeen in the latter part of his life, rahimahullah, and other ulama as well, that they selected the opinion that it is not required for them to repeat wudu, even though they said that it is mustahab. They said that it is recommended, however it is not wajib. So if the person cannot, then there is nothing wrong with that, their salah would be valid. But like I said, if somebody wants to just abstain, take the easier opinion, or rather the safer opinion, that is for them to do if they want to remain on the safe side. And يخرج من الخلاف. If they have that ability, then that's hasan. That's good. Is there any other questions about this? Any other questions? No. No.
This kind of pertains to a guy. If the guy does have his wudu,
No.
and he did get a cut, how much bleeding will nullify his wudu?
So he has a cut like on any part of his body.
Yeah.
Bleeding does not nullify the wudu. Bleeding does not nullify the wudu. So there is obviously, this is a mas'ala of khilaf. Ulama, they said that they disputed this matter. They said bleeding does nullify wudu, and then they differed as to how much bleeding nullifies wudu. So we have two authentic narrations. So some ulama, they said a little bit of bleeding, even the slightest amount nullifies wudu. Some said that no, only a large amount nullifies wudu. And then some, they had a hard time kind of distinguishing what is considered a large amount. However, the most correct opinion, the qawl al-rajih, wallahu a'lam, is that bleeding does not nullify wudu. We have two authentic narrations. The first one from Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu anhu, in which he mentions that he would pop a pimple and it would bleed, and then he would begin his salah, or then he would make his salah without performing wudu. So we know that Abdullah bin Umar, he understood that bleeding a small amount doesn't nullify wudu if that's the case. And in addition to that, we also know that Abdullah bin Umar was very keen on following the sunnah of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. We also have the very famous narration of Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu when he was stabbed and he was killed, radiallahu anhu rahimahullah. When he was stabbed by al-Majusi alayhi la'natullah, al-Majusi, okay, when Umar was stabbed, he was stabbed multiple times and he was bleeding profusely, of course. However, he carried on his salah until he had fainted. Okay, so obviously Umar's understanding as well was that bleeding does not nullify the salah or the wudu or invalidate the salah. Wallahu a'lam. Even though there is amongst the fuqaha, you'll find that it seems to be the majority opinion, which they even state that blood is najis. Any type of blood is najis. And this is a mas'ala that's mukhtalif fi, of course. So the majority of scholars, if my memory serves me correct, the majority of the ulama, they state that any human blood is najis. However, the most correct opinion, due to if you istiqra' jami' nusus al-sharia, try to reconcile between all the text narrated to us in the sharia, we'll come to see that not all blood, according to the more correct view, not all blood is najis. The blood that is najis is the blood that the woman experiences, al-hayd, and al-nifas, the menstruation blood and the postnatal bleeding. So any other blood, someone cuts their arm, they have a nosebleed, they have a wound or something, this blood is tahir, wallahu a'lam, it is not najis, does not even have to be washed off the body, and the person bleeding doesn't nullify their wudu or their salah. Wallahu a'lam. Is that clear? Any other questions? No? جزاكم الله خيرا وبارك الله فيكم وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد والحمد لله رب العالمين.